Hi, thanks for choosing this seminar. We hope you'll find it helpful. The main speaker is Jules, but I'll be guiding you through things. My name is Tim. At some points there are short tasks to do, so you'll need a pen and paper or a phone to note things down. It won't be too demanding. You don't need to stop the video at any point, just let it run. This seminar is about asking ourselves if we can really make a difference in this world. Can we have an impact on big problems? And how does God want us to do that? I work for Irish Methodist World Development and Relief, and we work with people around the world who are tackling poverty and injustice. God commands his disciples to do that. We're looking at a passage from the Bible and trying to see how it can be applied to us today. Jules will share his thoughts, we'll have stories from people around the world, and there's time for you to reflect upon what you can do. So, can we each change the world? Jules.
Hello, and hello from a COVID-infected room. I thought about wearing a mask, but then I thought, you know what, they'll probably be okay. Here's some of the theological thoughts on Micah 6:8. If you want to see me cry, buy me a ticket to go and see Les Miserables in the West End. It's coming up on being 35 years of the most incredible show that I think there is in the West End. It's a story of love, of sacrifice, of justice, of occupation, of political failure, of tragedy, of birth and death and redemption. If you haven't seen it, then you should, in your teenage years or your young 20s, make sure and go to see it. Things, themes like this and lyrics like this are why. For the wretched of the earth there is a flame that never dies. Even the darkest night will end and the sun will rise. They will live again in freedom in the garden of the Lord. We will walk behind the plowshare, we will put away the sword. The chain will be broken and all will have their reward. Take my hand, I'll lead you to salvation. Take my love, for love is everlasting. And remember the truth that once was spoken, to love another person is to see the face of God. Did you get that? To love another person is to see the face of God. The writer's antidote to suffering, to the trouble in the world, love, goes directly to the reading and the verses that we've been asked to pick up in this seminar. What I'm about to read to you was written round about 750 years before Christ. It goes back to whenever the Hebrews, the people of Israel, God's chosen people and our big brothers in the faith, as Pope JP II called the Jews, back to the time whenever the Jews were the original receivers of the life that God invites us all towards. It was a time when the nation was in big trouble. There was political infighting, and due to the external pressure of competing empires in the nations around them, primarily the Assyrians. So think about a real hotspot nation of the world, all violently vying for control of a region. The Israelites were being militarily harassed by the Assyrians, and they were financially broken by paying subservience to Assyria. Think of that subservience as a tax called "Please don't kill us."
So, 2,700 years ago, the Jews were experiencing violence, conflict over disputed land, economic hardship, oppression, and political infighting. And you could say, what has changed? I want you to take 1 minute to list all the current global problems you can think of. Now, that's problems in your own country, other countries, or even problems that affect everybody, everywhere. For example, climate change, unemployment. They could be economic problems, social problems, environmental problems, political problems, whatever. Okay, off you go. 1 minute is not as long as you think, so be quick, and we'll let you know when to stop. Okay, just stop there. You don't need to have thought of them all, but you may have thought of some things like war, HIV and AIDS, climate change, mental health, poverty, discrimination, racism, isolation of the elderly, poor education, underfunded health systems, oppression, the refugee crisis, rights around gender and sexuality, and the list goes on. Safe to say, like the Jews then, our world also has great hardships. But Jules, the Jews had another issue as well, one that was fully their own fault.
They were also religiously, I'll try that sentence again, they were also religiously lost because they were trying to appease these military and political bullies by taking on board some of the foreign religious practices by the people vying for power and control around them. They were mixing the worship of God with the worship and practices of other religious usurpers. Never a good idea. So now in the book of Micah, they're sitting back and they're saying, what's happened? What's gone wrong? Why has God abandoned us? What have we done? And Micah is not ashamed to tell them. Throughout the book, the people and even creation are crying out to see once more how things can be as God promised. It's an exasperated voice that cries out in chapter 6, with what shall I come before the Lord and bow myself before God on high? Shall I come with burnt offerings, calves a year old? Will the Lord be pleased with thousands of rams, with 10,000s? Rivers of oil shall I give my firstborn for my transgression, the fruit of my body for the sin of my soul? It's just more and more is given and offered up in subservience to God. Can we just get this sorted, is what the people are really wanting to say.
Okay, 10 seconds. Write down the 3 things that the world needs to get everything sorted. Go.
Justice, love, humility. Let me point out the obvious. All of those things about life in God are about how we interact with the other people around us. It's our relationships. It's how we relate to the people and the world and the earth around us. That is how we live out our faith. It's seeing the face of God in other people. It's what World Development and Relief does. Loves other people. And to love another person is to see the face of God. 3 things. Justice. We're called as Christians to get our feet wet and our hands dirty. Our actions matter. What you do counts. We need to be people of justice. One of the projects that I've been really honoured to visit and the WDR has supported in the past is a farm in the occupied Palestinian territories in the Middle East. It's the farm of the Nassers and it's called the Tent of Nations. Recently, I've taken lots of groups there. Recently, Dawood, the farmer, wrote this. Dawood Nasser reported the next development. On September the 4th, intruders came onto the land during the night and wreaked havoc on the vineyard cave. They tore out the heavily fortified door to the cave, broke windows, emptied cabinets, and threw contents on the floor, plus other destructive acts. Outside of the cave, they destroyed the solar panels and the batteries, and they stole the generator, both of which provided electricity. They also destroyed the security camera and stole the tape from the camera. Tools in the vineyard were stolen. The mess they left behind totaled almost about £30,000 in damages. They're a Christian farm in the occupied land of Palestine. The Israeli settlements that surround them are there illegally according to international law. It's a land grab. It's thieving. And the Nasser's response over 25 years has been, we have the papers to show that we legally own this land and we will not be intimidated off it. David will tell you, Dawood will tell you, that there are 3 responses that they have. One, you can cry. You can just give up and cry and say, this is terrible, can't do anything about it. You can play the victim. This is shocking. He said you can also run. He said you can turn and get out of there. He said, well, why would we? This is our family's land. We've been here for over 100 years. Or you can fight. He says the Christians, they can't fight. And so they choose to fight non-violently. They stand up for justice. They take their fights through the courts. They invite people like me and other groups to come and see what they're doing. And consequently, well, they have been choosing non-violent actions that mean, with the help of WDR and others, that whenever their water is cut off, they create ways to use the rainwater as drainage. When the electric was cut off, they built solar generators to power the farm. They have become an example of real sustainable farming in Palestine, standing against oppression, seeking justice, and doing it non-violently, doing it out of love. And that moves us into the second bit: justice, love. The prophet says love. Actually, it says love, love. The Hebrew is love, love. Two words: ahab and chesed. Ahab is more familiar. It can be romantic. It can be a family love. It can be used for deep love between friends. It's deep. It's physical. It's lasting. It's honouring. But chesed is the second word that's used, and chesed is also translated love at times in Hebrew. It goes deeper. When chesed is used, it is a deep, loving, steadfast faithfulness. There's nothing swift or passing whenever chesed is used. It's kindness. It's the deepest, most empathetic type of standing with that you can imagine. It's not a belief, it's a life. So the prophet is saying, act justly, love, real love. You know, a group of young Methodists saw this a couple of years ago when we travelled to South Africa. We saw the Pakamisa project, who do incredible work where women are getting trained in agriculture, in dressmaking, in childcare, in cooking, and those classrooms every day are full of people getting skills for life and economics. And I will not easily forget travelling through a shanty town, a township, to visit a little corrugated iron school that Pakamisa project had set up. It was incredible to meet these amazing children. They weren't just teaching children from the township how to talk and read and play, but they were providing them with food and clothes. It was love in action. It was love being love. And wrapping it all together, finally, humility. Justice, love, humility. I love the Message translation. Do what is fair and just to your neighbour. Be compassionate and loyal in your love. And don't take yourself too seriously. Take God seriously. You gotta play your part. It might be that you'll travel to the Middle East to stand against injustice, oppression. It might mean you go to Africa to help feed and clothe those who don't have food or clothes. Or it might be here in Ireland you take God seriously by standing alongside those who have trouble having their voice heard. You don't need to go far in our land or in our church to hear voices of women who have been subjected to male chauvinist pig behaviour. There's no space for that in our church. You don't need to go far to hear LGBTQ Christians who are subjected to suspicion or mistrust because of sexuality, gender, sexual preference, class. These things don't matter to God. God is looking for those who will act with justice, love in the deepest ways, and take God seriously. JFK said, we're going to put a man on the moon. They did it 8 years later. The average age of the workers in NASA at the time when JFK said that was 26. It was a major effort by young minds that carried that amazing project forward. 26. It was young minds put people on the moon. Let's do it again. Let's repair the world.
Justice, love, humility. It sounds good, but you might be asking, where do I do these things? I'd like you to take a minute and a half to list all the places where you spend time and all the people with whom you spend that time. It could be college or school, work, church, family, friendship groups, leisure time, clubs, sports, hobbies, events. But don't be vague, name the places and name the people. So don't just write friends, actually name them. Don't just say school, name the school. Okay, you know the drill. Try and do this one really well. Okay, hopefully you have a very full list and you maybe even ran out of time. We each have much more rich lives than we think. The many places we go, the many people we know. We can be an influence in all those situations, being just, loving and humble. We have plenty of opportunities. World Development has all sorts of great partners. Nader is director of East Jerusalem YMCA in Palestine, and they work with young people with physical and psychological disabilities, often as a result of the conflict between Palestinians and Israelis. I was out with Nader about a year ago, and he shared much of how he grew up in a land oppressed. He used to be a member of the Scouts, and with his friends he'd go on treks across open land. Now all those ways are barred because of walls, fences and military presence. He was wrongly arrested as a teenager and still has limited travel because of that injustice. He has been tortured. He also talked about falling in love with his future wife at the local university. Nader will not leave his homeland. He stands up for justice now on behalf of people whom he loves greatly. He knows what is right and what is wrong and protests peacefully against injustice. Nader teaches me about dignity and strength under oppression, and that justice is something that has to not just be defined and discussed, but actually lived out. Namalanga is a mother herself. She understands the struggles of bringing up children in a place where the poor are often ignored, living in places without water or electricity or secure employment, with little hope that things might improve. Namalanga works for Pakamisa that Jules mentioned, and indeed she is the teacher that he met and that I met on another occasion. She teaches preschool children in a makeshift classroom in a community where there was no such education. And it's clearly not just a job to her. Namalanga told me how she loves the children. She is so delighted to be able not just to give them a good educational start in life, but also give them the basics, such as a daily meal. Namalanga also teaches me about real practical love and putting the needs of others before my own. Joseph and Gladys are a married couple in Ghana, West Africa, and Joseph has become a great friend over the years. He and Gladys are an amazing team. They're so generous to others while struggling at times to pay their own bills or make time for themselves. Real servants. Gladys is a teacher and Joseph a Methodist minister. They have one daughter of their own, now grown up and married, but over the years they have adopted at least 6 others. And there's no state support for that. On each occasion, they simply asked God what He wanted them to do. They have taken the children in and done so many other generous things in life without thinking of the hardship they would cause themselves. Joseph and Gladys teach me that having humility means knowing that God's will and desires are greater than our own, that obeying Him is a more wonderful life than fulfilling our own desires. Now you might be thinking, but I can't go to Palestine or South Africa or Ghana, where all the need seems to be. But if you think about it, Dowd, Nader, Nomalanga, Joseph and Gladys, they haven't gone anywhere either. They're living justly, they're loving, and they're walking with humility in their own community, where they live.
So, well done. You have made it to the end of the seminar. You have thought about what it means to be the people of God, living a life of justice, a life of love, a life of humbly walking, as Peterson puts it, a life of don't take yourself too seriously. Take God seriously. So, a little wrap. Story in my life from a long time ago, whenever I was the age of most of you watching. It took place in the town that you should have been meeting in this weekend in Bangor. And it's something that, even though it was long ago, has stuck with me in incredible ways. To love another person is to see the face of God. We've talked about how our actions are loving, about how our walk with God is humbly surprising. Well, I was in church one Sunday night in Bangor, and a homeless alcoholic guy came in at the end of the service. He was a little bit bashed up. He got a really bad leg. There was a couple of nurses in that church service, and the nurses came, looked at his leg and said, "Oh yes, that's pretty bad. I think he needs the hospital." And then nobody volunteered to take him. So I, as this little 19, 20-year-old, whatever I was, said, "Oh, I'll take him." So I went and got my car, waited at the corner for this gentleman to get into my car so we could drive to Newtownards to the accident and emergency and get his leg seen to. Whenever he got into the car, 4 of his friends appeared from round the corner, all of them alcoholics. Jerry and Julie were 2 of them. Joe was another one, Joe's son. These are people who, whenever I was a teenager in Bangor, you just knew if you lived in Bangor. These were the local the local alcoholics. So they all climbed into my car. I'm like, what? We drove to Newtownards, took him to the A&E. He got his leg seen. He got his leg seen pretty quickly, I must confess. I've never been seen that quickly in A&E. I think they wanted him gone. So anyway, after a little while, they all come back out, and we're going back to Bangor, and they're singing in the car, and they're rejoicing over this leg that was lost but has been found. You know, it was fun. I was actually kind of on a date that night. I was already late for the person that I was meeting, and thinking I'm in so much trouble. So I was really wanting to get back. So I got back to Bangor as quick as I could, more or less threw them out of the car, and then whenever they got out of the car, Joe, since has stopped his earthly existence, Joe put his head back in through the car door and went, "God will smile on you for what you did for my friend tonight." And then he backed off and walked away, leaving me with a distinct impression of being tapped on the shoulder by God, thinking, "You didn't think I was anywhere near here, did you?" A word from the Lord, from a homeless alcoholic in Bangor. You don't know what searching after the mysterious God will do. You don't know where you're going to find him or her. You don't know where God is hiding around the corner. You don't know what God is waiting to say. All you know is that you're like, "Yep, okay, I'm up for this. What are you at, God? Where are you hiding? Let's go and find out." And you know what? In your search to be people of love, people of justice, people who don't take themselves too seriously but take God seriously. May you have many moments of the Spirit of God tapping you on the shoulder, saying, yeah, I'm right here. Open your eyes. Peace to you, and thank you for taking part in these conversations today.
World Development and Relief, Jules and myself, we all hope that you've enjoyed and been challenged by this seminar. We've prepared 3 more questions which will just sit there and you can use maybe to just think yourself or discuss with others, with your youth leader, with a group of friends, and see where you can really make a difference in this world. Because to love another person is to see the face of God. God bless. And if you'd like to find out more about World Development and its partners and their work across the world, then do visit our website